This is True News. I'm Rick Wiles. The World Health Organization is one step away from declaring coronavirus a global pandemic. The WHO classified the outbreak last week as a global emergency. If and when the WHO declares coronavirus a pandemic, each member nation is required to immediately implement a protocol of emergency action steps to contain the pandemic. China on Monday accused the United States of whipping up panic over the fast-spreading coronavirus with travel restrictions and evacuations as the Shanghai Stock Exchange closed almost 8% lower on the first day back from the extended Lunar New Year holiday. We have this report from Reuters.
China on Monday accused the United States of whipping up panic over the fast-spreading coronavirus with travel restrictions and evacuations as Chinese stocks closed down almost 8% on the first day back from the extended Lunar New Year holiday. The new virus, which emerged in Wuhan, China, has killed more than 360 people, and the number of new confirmed infections climbed to more than 17,000. The flu-like virus has been reported in 23 other countries, including the United States, where an 11th case was reported on Sunday. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman said the U.S. has, quote, unceasingly manufactured and spread panic by pulling its nationals out and restricting travel instead of offering significant aid, noting that the World Health Organization had advised against trade and travel bans. Relations between the United States and China had just begun to recover after a long and bruising trade war. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the U.S., which flew people out of Wuhan last week, is planning more flights out of the region.
Yes, we have a handful more flights that will be heading to China to bring Americans back home from Hubei province. The exact timing of those, we're still coordinating with the Chinese government, but we anticipate that they will happen in the next handful of days, and we'll return those American citizens. We may well end up bringing some citizens back from other countries as well.
Australia evacuated 243 people from Wuhan on Monday and will quarantine them on a remote island. On Saturday, it followed the United States in barring entry to all foreign nationals traveling from mainland China. But China itself has taken some of the most extreme measures to contain the virus, as Wuhan and some other cities remain in virtual lockdown with travel severely restricted. Meanwhile, Chinese-ruled Hong Kong, rocked by months of sometimes violent anti-China protests, announced on Monday the closure of 4 more border crossings with mainland China, leaving just 3 open.
We will continue to monitor the situation.
But leader Carrie Lam stopped short of demands for the entire border to be closed.
The coronavirus's impact on the Chinese economy is also evident in tumbling oil prices. Now, Reuters sources say OPEC may be considering a cut in output. Reuters reporter Julian Satterthwaite reports.
Oil prices took a tumble Monday. International benchmark Brent crude was down about 1.5% by early afternoon. And it's the coronavirus to blame. In China, the world's biggest crude importer, refiner Sinopec has told its facilities to cut output by about 600,000 barrels per day. The 12% cut is the steepest in more than a decade. It comes as the virus cools economic activity in China. Now OPEC too may take action. Reuters sources say the oil producers group could cut production, maybe by 500,000 barrels per day. The sources say OPEC may hold a meeting in mid-February ahead of a planned March get-together. On Monday, Iran's oil minister said efforts must be made to balance supply and demand.
The sudden negative slowdown on China's economy has prompted the People's Bank of China, their central bank, to inject heavy doses of Chinese cash into its financial system to ensure sufficient liquidity in the Chinese banking system. Reuters' David Doyle has this report.
China on Sunday ramped up measures to contain the coronavirus epidemic and shore up the economy against its effects, as the first death from the illness was reported outside the country. A 44-year-old Chinese man from Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak, died in the Philippines on Saturday, the Department of Health said.
Of course it's frightening. It really is frightening because the virus will spread.
The Philippines has expanded its travel ban to include all foreigners coming from China, and Beijing is facing mounting isolation as other countries introduce similar travel restrictions. Airlines suspend flights and governments evacuate their citizens. That risks worsening a slowdown in the world's second largest economy. China's central bank said it will inject $173.8 billion worth of liquidity into the markets on Monday, as the country prepares to reopen its stock markets following an extended Lunar New Year holiday. As of Sunday, there have been more than 300 coronavirus deaths in China, and the city of Wuhan has been effectively quarantined, with roads sealed off and public transport shut down. State media said one of 2 new hospitals in Wuhan dedicated to coronavirus patients was completed on Sunday. More than 100 Germans and family members landed in Frankfurt on Saturday after being evacuated from Wuhan, and around 250 Indonesians were evacuated from Hubei province. Japan and Russia will start moving their nationals out later in the week. Cases have been reported in more than 24 countries, including the United States, Japan, Australia and Britain. Meanwhile, doctors in Thailand say they have seen success in treating severe cases of coronavirus using a combination of medications for flu and HIV. They said the approach had shown a vast improvement in the conditions of several patients in their care after 48 hours.
Well, where did coronavirus originate? For weeks, Chinese officials and Western news media outlets said it came from a meat market in Wuhan, and that bats and snakes are the most likely culprits as the original carriers. True News correspondent Edward Zoll, however, says there is troubling information that indicates coronavirus may be a bioengineered weapon that is spiked with the HIV virus. Here's Edward's special report.
Arrests and expulsions of Chinese scientists, foiled attempts at smuggling away deadly germs, and a job posting by a bioweapons lab in Wuhan looking for someone to weaponize coronavirus. Reporting for True News, I'm Edward Zoll. In the space of a month, a virus has paralyzed the second largest economy in the world. And at its current rate of infection, experts believe it could dwarf the 50 million death toll produced by the Spanish flu. But what do we really know about the origin of this escalating epidemic? Chinese health authorities and the World Health Organization first believed Wuhan's Hunan seafood wholesale market was the epicenter of the infection, and that improper handling of bats or snakes was the cause of the initial transmission to humans. This premise has since been challenged by a large group of Chinese researchers in the Lancet Medical Journal and Georgetown University infectious disease specialist Daniel Lucy, who believes the virus came into the marketplace before it came out. But what brought this angel of death to the market? Last week, Great Game India, a quarterly magazine on international affairs, offered a possible explanation with a shocking report titled Coronavirus Bioweapon: How China Stole Coronavirus from Canada and Weaponized it. The report details an investigation which centers on the internationally renowned scientist Dr. Django Chu, who until recently served as the head of the Vaccine Development and Antiviral Therapy section in the Special Pathogens Program at the Canadian National Microbiology Laboratory. This lab serves as Canada's only Level 4 facility for handling of the world's deadliest diseases, including Ebola, SARS, and coronavirus. This same lab, specifically the department under Dr. Django, was placed under investigation last year after a mysterious buffet of bioweaponized viruses were shipped to China under the auspices of supporting public health research worldwide. Condemnation was broad, with some scientists, such as Danny Shaham, a biological and chemical warfare expert at Israel's Bar-Ilan University, calling the delivery highly suspicious, and labeling China's intentions as less humanitarian and more in the realm of biological warfare. James Giordano, a neurology professor at Georgetown University and senior fellow in biowarfare at the U.S. Special Operations Command, said that China's goal was not war, but leverage. Leverage to act as a global savior, with the only magic antidote when one of their fungus Frankensteins get loose to ravage the village. But to accomplish this shadowy feat, China would need men on the inside, and in this case, Great Game India believes Dr. Jiango Chu and her husband, Dr. Keding Cheng, a fellow colleague at Canada's Vault of Viruses, served Beijing well, and over the course of her decade-long career, successfully infiltrated a culture of Chinese agents as students from scientific facilities directly tied to China's biological welfare program, strengthening the case that Dr. Jiango led a team of biospies for Beijing and that her work on the coronavirus may be tied to the current outbreak. Dr. Jiango made at least 5 separate trips between 2017 and 2018 to Wuhan National Biosafety Laboratory, housed at the Chinese military's own Level 4 killer germ testing facility, located only 20 miles away from the Hunan Seafood Market, the alleged epicenter for the coronavirus pandemic. Dr. Jiango and her team were evicted from Canada's top virus incubator in July of last year, but the extent of her work and damage are still secret. As for the bioweapons lab she visited extensively in Wuhan, they're hiring, at least according to a peculiar job posting placed on November 18, 2019, which sought to hire 1 or 2 postdoctorate fellows to use bats to research the molecular mechanisms that allow Ebola and SARS-associated coronavirus to lie dormant for a long time without causing diseases. Again, the outbreak in Wuhan was not announced to the world until mid-December. This help-wanted ad for the viral vacation venue of suspected Chinese biospy Dr. Jiango was looking for relatively inexperienced individuals to research the potentially weaponize the super coronavirus. This work was to be done under the direct supervision of another famous Chinese virology and immunology expert, Dr. Peng Zhao, a researcher at the Wuhan Institute of Virology and leader of the Bat Virus Infection and Immunization Group. Dr. Peng, in his own words, has rushed forward with a sword in his research in the immune mechanism of bats carrying and transmitting nightmarish viruses such as Ebola, SARS, and coronavirus. In 2016, Dr. Peng is quoted as saying, "In the long run, bats carry the virus without getting sick. It is hoped that humans can learn how to fight the virus." But this is still far from industrialization. The industrialization Dr. Peng was pursuing includes genetically engineering the coronavirus to test the limits of immunity for animals and now humans. Now, if these were the only incidents of bioespionage amid the outbreak, connecting directly back to the city at the center of the crisis, that'd be enough for concern. But just this past week, a Harvard professor was charged and arrested for concealing a pay-to-recruit scheme on behalf of the Chinese government. Dr. Charles Lieber, chair of Harvard University's Chemistry and Chemical Biology Department and recipient of more than $15 million in funding from National Institute of Health and the Department of Defense, secretly became a strategic scientist at Wuhan University of Technology in China. This is in 2011, and between 2012 and 2017 was a contractual participant in China's 1,000 Talents Plan, designed to attract, recruit, and cultivate high-level scientific talent to further China's scientific development and national security. This includes financial bounties for stealing proprietary information. Under the terms of Dr. Lieber's 3-year contract with Wuhan University of Technology, he was paid $50,000 per month, living expenses of up to $158,000 and awarded more than $1.5 million to establish a research lab at the Wuhan University. In return, Dr. Lieber agreed to work for Wuhan University of Technology for a minimum of 9 months a year by declaring international cooperation projects, cultivating young teachers and PhD students, organizing international conference, applying for patents and publishing articles in the name of Wuhan University. In addition to the arrest of Dr. Lieber, 2 Chinese nationals were also charged, one in absentia, of acting as agents of a foreign government. One of the men, Zheng, was arrested on December 10th of last year at Boston's Logan International Airport and was charged with attempting to smuggle 21 vials of biological research hidden in a sock to China. The material was reportedly taken from Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston. Mr. Zheng has since been indicted. In response to the arrests, the Department of Justice held a press conference, which quickly evolved into a mirror of the Trump administration's posturing for a new Cold War with China.
No country poses a greater or more severe and long-term threat to our national security and economic prosperity than China. China's communist government's goal, simply put, is to replace the United States as the world's leading superpower, and they're breaking the law to get there.
Special Agent Bonavolonta perfectly channeled U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's vision of a new liberal world order that sees China as the new Russia, an Eastern devil that is the central threat of our times. But while the Trump administration has been preparing feverishly for this future war with China, pandemic preparedness has been placed on the back burner. In 2018, then National Security Advisor John Bolton gutted the Global Health Security Team, a committee specifically geared to respond to viral outbreaks. The former head of this crack squad of epidemic experts, Rear Admiral Timothy Zimmer, quit shortly after that and was not replaced, placing all the power of that position solely under John Bolton and his successors. An administration official at the time was quoted by the Washington Post as saying, "In a world of limited resources, you have to pick and choose. We lost a little bit of the leadership, but the expertise remains." A day before news of Admiral Zimmer's departure became public, a member of his former team, Luciana Borio, Director of Medical and Biodefense Preparedness at the National Security Council, spoke at a symposium at Emory University to mark the 100th anniversary of the 1918 influenza pandemic. This is what she said. "The threat of the pandemic flu is the #1 health security concern. Are we ready to respond? I fear the answer is no." John Bolton has since left the National Security Council, but have his ideas. One pet project of his comes to mind, the project for the new American century. In September of 2000, PNAC published a policy paper titled Rebuilding America's Defenses. And on page 60, in the chapter titled Transforming U.S. Conventional Forces, the megalomaniac manifesto reads, "Space itself will become a theater of war as nations gain access to space capabilities and come to rely on them. Further, the distinction between military and commercial space systems, combatants and non-combatants, will become blurred. Information systems will become an important focus of the attack, particularly for U.S. enemies seeking to short-circuit sophisticated American forces, and advanced forms of biological warfare that can target specific genotypes may transform biological warfare from the realm of terror to a politically useful tool." All the members of this neocon gang of imperialist pillagers, from John Bolton to Bill Kristol to Victoria Nuland's husband, Robert Kagan, and prominent Bush administration officials such as Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, and Paul Wolfowitz, have been giddy cheerleaders for a restart to the Cold War. And now that China is under siege by the coronavirus and their agents are being caught red-handed on U.S. soil committing bioespionage, what better time to score political points and turn terror into a useful tool? We've shared a lot of information in this shocking report, and I just want to add to you that even with the symptoms of this new Cold War being laid out in front